Welcome to Better Together with your hosts, EmmaLlee and Jennifer Morrow. When we all work together, we are stronger and can accomplish more for the kingdom of God. And now, here are the hosts of Better Together, EmmaLlee and Jennifer Morrow.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Better Together. Jen Morrow here, and of course, I'm with my co-host,
EmmaLlee. It's nice to see you again, Jen.
It's good. It seems like it's been a long time.
I was just going to say it felt like a time warp to me, so I don't know. Time is funny. Like, it's like, weren't we just doing this?
Exactly. I'm also thinking we've introduced ourselves right after, we've been introduced. We need to maybe think about some new material.
Shake it up a little. You guys know who we are.
Exactly. But so it's good to see you. We have an exciting show today. We have a guest in the studio, which is only our third guest in studio, so we're very excited.
So we're going to be really fast with our little updates, and then we're going to get right to our main point today.
Right, because our guest on the phone, too, we don't want to keep him waiting.
Absolutely.
So, Em, you want to talk a little bit about what's been going on?
Yeah, so it's just, typical fall, just getting ready for holidays and everything that's going along with that. Our issue for the Monitor for the Diocese of Trenton that's coming out is going to include an in focus section on anti-poverty initiatives. So I would just encourage everybody to check that out, especially in advance of some of the national collections that are coming up. It's just kind of important to know how your support can help those folks that the initiatives are for. And then, of course, we had our annual Bishop's Anniversary Blessings Masses and recognition of those couples with their anniversary milestones. And this was my first year that I got to attend the diaconate convocation along with deacons and their wives, because my husband was ordained in May. And there's just something that Monsignor Thomas Mullally said while we were there, and he's our vicar for clergy and consecrated life. And when he was welcoming everyone to the convocation, he reminded us how important it is to take the time at events like that to engage in conversation. And he said prayer is conversation with God, and taking time to converse with our brothers and sisters in ministry is a part of that. And it reminded me of something I'd heard many years ago. I don't remember who said it, but it was that you can't rush relationships. You can rush systems, you can rush business in certain circumstances, but you can't rush relationship. It needs time to just evolve naturally, and to glean that from conversation is just so important. So I'm going to try to remember that. I think that speaks to our radio show and trying to be better together.
And I think it's a good reminder as we go into our holiday seasons when we're going to be sitting around tables not too long after the election as well. So
got to bring the conversation back.
In mind. Anything else you want to share with us?
That's it. I'm just excited for our show today.
Me too.
So do you have any updates you want to share?
Actually, my brief update kind of goes right into our subject today, and that is the Diocese of Camden just had their Diocesan Marian pilgrimage to Washington, D.C.,
Nice.
And we had over 40 buses and 4,000 parishioners go on pilgrimage, the Marian pilgrimage with Bishop Sullivan and our co-adjutor, Bishop Williams.
Oh, my goodness.
So I thought that was pretty amazing to see all of those people. I personally wasn't there, but everybody who was there said how amazing it was. And we're talking about pilgrimages. That is our episode today as well. So I just thought it was a good fit, because after seeing 4,000 people at the Basilica in Washington, and that kind of goes into, and I know we've talked about pilgrimages before, but this one's kind of a different
and we've got a Jubilee year coming up.
We have a Jubilee year coming up, and our guest here is going to talk all about tours. But talking about the Jubilee year, the Diocese of Camden also has a tour coming up with our Bishop Sullivan and our Vicar General, Father Hughes. So if you want to go on a pilgrimage in the Jubilee year, just go to 206tours.com/Father Hughes. That's FRHUGHES.
Awesome.
And now let's talk to somebody who knows exactly how to run a pilgrimage in studio, and our guest. You want to introduce who's on the phone?
Yes, on the phone today with us, we have Father Martin O'Reilly. He's pastor of Mary, Mother of God Church in Bordentown and co-chair of the National Eucharistic Revival for the Diocese of Trenton. And he's the spiritual director for a recent pilgrimage to Italy, where 22 pilgrims from the Diocese of Trenton were able to go to multiple sites. And instrumental in that was our studio guest, Carolyn Norbut, who's the associate director for the Trenton Diocese's Office of Worship. And she's also the founder of Journey of Journey of Faith tours, which organized all of the pilgrimage details. So welcome to both Father O'Reilly and Carolyn. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good morning, ladies,
Good
and
morning.
good morning, Carolyn.
Hey, good morning, Father.
A long time no see, right?
Just one little fix. It's Mary, Mother of the Church, not Mary, Mother of God.
I do that all the time.
Mary,
I'm
Mother of the
so
Church.
sorry, Father.
I know, and so does everybody else. And but there is a Mary, Mother of God's parish also in Middletown. So just to put that right. That's all.
Correct.
We're still quite new, so people are still getting trying to get a handle on it.
Oh, well, thank you so much for the part that you played
You're
in
welcome.
guiding these pilgrims along their trip to Italy. Just for you personally, I know you have a short time with us today. You have a busy schedule. So just wanted to dive right in. How did people learn? I understand it was 22 people from all counties of the Trenton Diocese. How did they learn about this trip opportunity and where you would be traveling and the fact that it's related to the Eucharistic miracles on this pilgrimage?
Yeah. Well, obviously, as you know, the United States, the Diocese of the United States have had the Eucharistic revival over the last 2 years. And Carlo Acutis, Blessed Carlo Acutis, as you know, had documented all the Eucharistic miracles of the world. Now, obviously, every time the Eucharist is celebrated, it's a miracle. But every so often, God takes it a little bit further, just to, in a sense, to take the scales off our eyes, just to open up the reality that this is a real event. This actually does happen. And so anyway, we have had the Eucharistic miracles display touring around our diocese and other dioceses as well, but in particular the Diocese of Trenton. And a number of people had asked about these Eucharistic miracles, and some had asked, would it ever be possible to do a pilgrimage? So back at the planning committee, we had discussed it, we had talked about it, and we said, you know what, let's just put it out there. And of course, then we reached out to Carolyn, and she put together this wonderful package that was, and the 22 people signed up for it and had a wonderful time. And it was really something that I have no doubt will play and embed in their lives forever. As I said to them on the pilgrimage, that the experiences that we're having may not really come to the surface until days, weeks, months, or even years later. Because here's the thing, God speaks to us at a time when we most need God. Now, God is always reaching out to us, but whenever in the sense that we feel that sense of abandonment, that sense of isolation, God will come to us in a particular way at a particular time, just to reach us, to reassure us, as he did through the Eucharistic miracles. I mean, at a particular time, at a particular moment, the people needed that, and God knew it.
That's a good point.
God reached out to us.
That's a good point, Father, and that a lot of the Eucharistic miracles, the ones that I've read about on the display that's touring the diocese, it was as a result of some lack of belief on the part of the person who was in contact with the Eucharist at the time. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, obviously, there are a number of them, and I think it's the miracle in Laciano, and Carolyn can correct me on that one. But yes, that seems to be the case. Back in the 8th century, in 750, there was a monk who was of a different rite, who was being asked to celebrate this Eucharist, and he had come with the doubts and had really questioned and queried the feasibility, the possibility that this could happen. And as he elevated the host, it had transformed into real flesh, and the chalice, the wine, had transformed into actual blood. And you'd say, well, that's wonderful, that's great. But here's the thing. It's still as real today as it was back then in 750. And the blood type can be determined today as it was back in 750. The flesh and what part of the human body can be determined today as it was back in 750. So it wasn't just a one-off miracle. It is a perpetual miracle. There for us to see. And as I said, I wrote in my bulletin reflection afterwards, it really, in a sense, didn't strengthen my faith. What it did for me was it highlighted my lack of faith. how we can oftentimes morph into ritual, and we can become a ritualistic people, that oftentimes the impact of it is lost on us. We go to Mass, we stand up, we sit down, we kneel, we stand up, we sit down, we kneel, we go through. And for the vast majority of us, the miracle itself is lost on us. And it's just, I've become so conscious, like, you know, as it happens in every church across the world, I mean, after communion, you had a significant number of people who would leave. I'm thinking, if you really believed, I would have to get security guards to throw you out of here. You know? Because if you really believe that this was the body and blood of Christ, but there's something, and maybe it's God designed, maybe God actually prevents us from truly appreciating, truly understanding what it is we're seeing. Because otherwise, we probably would be paralyzed. We'd probably be spiritually paralyzed if we truly believed that this was the Eucharist, that this was Jesus Christ. Because we wouldn't want to leave his presence. And we'd never get on with our daily work. We would become useless, spiritually useless to the world.
Wasn't that
so
something...
maybe in a way God does not allow us to fully appreciate, but just reminds us every so often.
Wasn't that something that Blessed Carlo had said, too, that if people truly knew what the Eucharist was, they would be lining up, because he observed that people would line up for concerts and games and things, but they weren't lining up outside of churches, and that was that lack of understanding. And you got to see both the miracle of Lanciano and Blessed Carlo on the tour, am I right?
Yeah, in addition to others.
And we also saw the miracle of Siena, the Eucharistic miracle of Siena as well, where the host had been stolen not once but twice. And again, it is still, visible to the eye today. Like, I mean, that happened back like over 270 years ago, like, I mean, I'm still counting. And it hasn't withered, it hasn't disintegrated, it hasn't rotted. It's still very much fresh and alive today. And these are only two, but there are hundreds of them right across the world.
And Carolyn,
but those are the two we saw, and obviously the body of Blessed Carlos. That was, for me, that was quite amazing, because you have this image of this young little boy, quite frail maybe and quite sick, and yet no, when you're looking at his body, you're like, you were a big lad, you were strong, you were muscular, you know what I mean? And like, you know, the physical strength there, but yet no, in that physical strength was a softness, a love, a divine love that dwelt within him.
And I've heard it said from those who have been to that shrine, Carolyn, maybe you can say if this happened as well, that there's something about seeing this young man in Nikes, right? Like, he's a saint of our time.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say it's actually, I don't want to say it's cool to see him, but you know, it's like normally when we're attending funerals, viewings, you know, like we're used to seeing older people, and there's a sadness in obviously seeing this young man. But yeah, like to be able to fully identify with, like, he's just like so many other young kids that you're used to seeing, or that he is definitely a saint of our times.
Mm-hmm. Father Martin, one of the things that I know that you had attended the Eucharistic Congress over the summer. Carolyn, I'm sorry, did you? Okay, so I don't want to limit my question. And so I was wondering, you know, I know that one of the big calls from the Congress was, you know, revival can't stay here. Is that something that, Carolyn, you and Father tried to bring on your Eucharistic pilgrimage, that we are in a Eucharistic revival, and, you know, we're continuing that passion from Indianapolis and we're taking it with us?
We are. I mean, obviously, at a national level, there are sending out materials to contact people in all the parishes. One of the things that we did, one of the things that the committee did shortly after we were established, was that we tried to create a team of people across the diocese. And within every parish, we had asked for a contact person. And the role of that contact person was to, in the sense, to reach out to the parish and to share the information that was coming from a national level. And nationally, they do have some wonderful materials that they can use in the parish. Also, too, they have wonderful webinars and information evenings. So again, I would just encourage the points of contact to reach out to that and to be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would do. But in that sense, they are, and but it's a challenge. I mean, it's that type of challenge, you know, that many people still face because of the busyness of life. What does mission actually mean?
Right.
And there is a scale of work there to be looked at and to be presented. What is mission? I mean, how can I be missionary?
Right. Hey, Father, you kind of mentioned this a second ago about, you know, if we really understood the Eucharistic miracle, could we handle it, basically?
Right.
You know, Carolyn and Father alluded to this as well. You know, one of the reasons for the Eucharistic revival was because polls showed that the belief in the real presence was on the downswing. But why is it important to note the number of those who do believe? And did you see that on the pilgrimage?
Very much so. You know, we had the opportunity, as Father had said, to be able to go to a number of these different chapels, either where the miracle actually happened or to physically be able to see the miracle itself. And I think that what it does is it really solidifies transubstantiation for us. You know, and like when you're hearing the words of consecration and you're understanding that the bread and wine are being transformed into the body and blood of Christ. But now we actually have the opportunity to see that. And, you know, as the tours are happening and you're hearing from the tour guide or you're watching the videos or, you know, the miracle at Lanciano, to be able to hear that the host transformed into obviously the body of Christ, but very particularly the heart, right? And so how beautiful of that's it's what the Lord gives of him, right? And like he gives us everything, but asking for our heart, he's giving us his. And the same thing with the transformation of the wine into the blood, into the actual blood of Christ. And to be able to know through many scientific experiments over the years that blood type is still the same, that the blood type of those two miracles are identical. Mm-hmm. So it's very beautiful, and you can't help but believe. Mm-hmm. Even you know, to have that prayer, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief, to be able to see physically with your own eyes these miracles. As Father said, and like every time we're at Mass, you have the miracle happen during the consecration, but it definitely solidifies. Yeah. So it's very cool.
Father, is there anything else that you would like to share with us from this trip? I know you have a limited schedule this morning. We wanted to make sure.
I do have a funeral now at 11, so I'm going to have to go now. I just want to thank both of you and to thank Carolyn for all her help. The only thing I will say, I'm a very strong advocate of pilgrimages because it's not so much the places that you see, it's the relationships that are built with the people who go on those journeys. Like even if any of you have seen the movie that Martin Sheen is in about the Camino and how he, in a sense of going to walk the footpath that his son had walked and tragically died. But it's the journey in itself, but it's the people that you meet on the journey, because it's amazing who God will send to journey with you along the way. And I think that's important, that it's not just me going on a pilgrimage or going on a journey. I must be open to those whom God might send me to meet me. So in that aspect of things as well. So I would be a very strong advocate of pilgrimage. I think it's healthy. I think it's good. And I would encourage anyone to take a pilgrimage. I know we do cruises, we do vacations and all the rest. Do a pilgrimage. It's worth it. I must go, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Father.
Thanks so much.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
You too.
Carolyn, do you want to speak to that? I mean, you have such, we want to talk about your experience with pilgrimages, so much so that, you know, you have your business. So, you know, I love what he said. It's amazing who God will send to you along the way, which is so much like life, too. Right. So is that what you've experienced on pilgrimage?
It is. And, you know, being able to, as EmmaLlee was saying about, like my role within the diocese, right? So I'm the associate director for worship. I'm also the associate director for vocations. I'm director of pilgrimages. Like that's what happens to us, right? Like we get many hats. And so to then be able to start a business of pilgrimages, I'm like, there's a million pilgrimage companies out there. And so, but the thing that I was finding, and I experienced it this past weekend, when we had the anniversary blessings, that some of the couples that were just on the pilgrimage with us were at the anniversary blessing celebrating their 50th.
Oh, wow.
And so talking about community, for me, that was my vision of being able to, it wasn't just a matter of, going on pilgrimage with, because many people like to travel with the big names, right? I'm like, that's wonderful. And I would definitely encourage people to do that. But sometimes what ends up happening is that if you're not connected to your parish community or to your diocesan community, you become, you have this flame that's been lit while you're away, and you come home and it very quickly burns out if you don't have that community around you. And so even something as simple as being able to see a handful of couples at the anniversary blessing, as soon as we saw each other, it was like it brought it all immediately back. And it was like, oh, it's so great to see you. And how's everything? And what's been going on since you've been back? And you have that community. And so to know that you're going to see these people continuing throughout the journey, like a lot of these people were also parishioners of Father Martin. And I think they were from like 12 or 13 different parishes. And so while I like parish communities to be able to travel together, because I think that that's like a whole nother level, because when you're traveling as a parish community and you have 30, 50 people that are traveling, and then you go back home into your parish, that parish then becomes mission territory. You're going to get involved. That flame that you've lit, that you've had when you're on pilgrimage, you're going to reinsert yourself back into your parish community. You're going to become a lector. You're going to want to become a Eucharistic minister. You're going to want to start Bible study, something, right? And so for me, that was my vision of wanting to be able to start it. But I love seeing the fruits of it, especially me being here in the diocese and being able to see the people that I've traveled with pretty regularly. So so it's great.
And you've shared something so deep with these people because you've
absolutely.
prayed together. You've gone to Mass and to these holy sites and had these transformative experiences. And it's nice to go to beautiful buildings and to see beautiful natural sites. But this type of spiritual transformation is, I mean, the fact that you're able to share it with people that you are going to come in contact with again is really special.
And it's the faith journey. It's the faith journey of it. It's the journey of faith that, it's like you're, not only when you're praying together, which is a beautiful thing, but when you're sharing a meal and you're learning about these different people's lives and some of their struggles and some of their, how did you come to even travel with us? And some people are like, oh, well, I was walking past the garbage can and I saw the flyer and I picked it up because I thought the picture was beautiful, and, whatever the case is. But you really see how the Lord brings people together in order to have that journey and to share that journey together.
I love that.
Yes.
That's amazing.
The stories of the, and now I'm been dealing with hundreds of people that I talk with and set up on some of the different pilgrimages, and they're beautiful, just the stories of sadness and the stories of triumph and people sick with cancer and being able to pray with people immediately right then on the phone. It's a mission, it's not just about going to the fancy places and the big churches, and all of that's beautiful, but it's uplifting each other as community.
That sounds like an anthology. You pull this together. It's just everyone's experience is unique to them, but then there's also the shared experience. So bringing that together, I get it. I understand this experience you had because I had something happen to me too when I came across. Can you review for our listeners which sites you visited? We had talked about Lanciano and Siena, and then you were also in Rome.
Yeah, so we started off in Orvieto, and so that was one of the Eucharistic miracles. And so even though the miracle itself didn't happen in the chapel that we celebrated Mass, but the corporal was in the Cathedral of Orvieto, so we had the opportunity to do that. Siena, as you said, was definitely one of them. We also went to Lanciano, which again, very beautiful church. Loretto, the House of the Nativity, which was the first time for me. I had never gone, so that was very cool to be able to do that. And definitely Rome, and Assisi. Yeah, so
I love
that was
Assisi.
great. And even Assisi, and like we talked about, like the different Eucharistic miracles and remembering St. Clare, that even though that really, and like we could classify that as a Eucharistic miracle, right? Like when she had the monstrance as the convent was starting to be invaded, and she holding up the monstrance, and we're like, that too is a Eucharistic miracle. Like we got to count that in as one.
Right. Definitely.
It counts. It counts.
It does.
We were talking before we went on air about just the idea of going on a pilgrimage and having someone take care of the details. Like for me, I was sharing with Jen, I said, for all the things that I've planned when it comes to vacations for family and everything, I said, I'm kind of done being a travel agent. I would love for someone else to handle all of that. And that's one of the things I think that would be so appealing, is to have a company like Journey of Faith Tour, someone with you at the helm who has been on many of these pilgrimages herself and knows, okay, this is where we want to stay, this is who we need to talk to, and just knowing that you're going to be in good hands when you join one of these tours that's designed really to make sure you have time for these holy sites and time to connect with Jesus.
It's time. It's time. It's good to have time to be able to pray. I'm like, because you want to be able to have all of that too, and not all travel companies are necessarily faith-based, and so they say, like that, well, we can put together a spiritual journey for you, but it also goes deeper into knowing the ground companies, right? So it's like, I'm not calling the hotels, or I'm not calling the churches to make the reservations, but I have a team of people that I work with in these different countries. And so I need to make sure that they're understanding my mission, and I'm equally understanding theirs. And so when we're able to come together to really pull together these great pilgrimages, and knowing that group travel is really not for everybody, right? I'm like, it's not that it's not for everybody, but it could be difficult for some people. But I think that it's a great opportunity to be able to kind of get it started, right? So if you're not overly adventurous and you're like, I'd really like to go to Italy, or I'd really like to be able to go to Rome, sometimes it's good to be able to go and experience in a safe way some of these different cities, and to kind of finagle, like to say, like, how can we really work this so that I want to go back and I want to spend 2 weeks in Rome, not just 5 days. Well, now that I've gone with a group, I think I can handle doing this, right? I'm like, because now you're a little bit more familiar with it. And so I think it helps people to be able to experience that too. So
it's a good introduction to the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And as writers, as journalists, first, full disclosure, we got some sweet Journey of Faith swag this morning. By the way, that came after we invited Carolyn, so there's no ethical concerns. But what I love is that it's a beautiful journal. Now, like I said, as writers, we love to write. So I feel like, one of the great things about being on a faith journey is that you can share what you're experiencing with God in these. So I'm thinking you give these out to the...
I do. Yeah. So all of my pilgrims that travel with me, I always give them a journal and a pen, because sometimes, I'm like, most times people will bring that themselves. But again, it's just a nice size. It fits in your bag.
Perfect.
But but when the Lord talks, like there's sometimes I was watching the two of you as Father Martin was saying things. You're both writing little things down, right? Maybe it just is a word, or it's something, a confirmation of something that you were praying earlier in the day, and the Lord has just spoken to you through somebody else, and it's like, that's an affirmation.
I don't want to forget this, and I want to share it with someone else.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe it's not for you, maybe it's for somebody else, and so I started giving the journals out. Sadly, I'm not traveling there too much these days, but we were praying that we'll be able to get back. But going to the Holy Land, and so that's my first love, is being able to bring people there. And those trips I go on, like I'm with the groups, right? Because I love watching everything become so visible, and it's like, yes, that is the Sea of Galilee. That is the Garden of Gethsemane, right? So it's like these are places that we've read about and have heard about since we were little. And yeah, so just to be able, but I see how the gospel's open and everything just becomes so alive to them. And so, yeah, so I do. I try to encourage people to journal for sure.
Well, Father Martin said, I didn't write it all down, so I'm going to have to go back and listen to this this episode again because I couldn't write that fast. But he basically was saying, God speaks to us, but then we hear it when we most need it. Did I get that right?
Right, yeah, that it would come back to us
Right.
maybe
So,
later.
like, even if you wrote it down, maybe you didn't need to hear it right then, but like a year from now when you're picking that up and you're like, oh my goodness, that's what, that's when I need it now.
But there's another
Right.
layer to it that you didn't realize at the time. Like, oh, now this is ringing true.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Love that.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit how you started the company and why.
So today, which is pretty amazing, today is actually my 3rd anniversary.
Is it really?
It is. Yeah, I started, I officially signed all the papers and the company into existence because I needed all of the help of all of the saints. And so, because it was them that I was going to be taking people to see, right? So, I begging for their intercession and, that I'm faithful to what it is that I'm saying my mission is. And so it's pretty cool. But I guess I started in like 2015, 2016. I was freelancing with some different tour companies, and I kind of felt like I was giving it. I really had no desire to start my own company. I'm very happy at the diocese, and I was loving travel, and didn't really necessarily feel the need to start my own company, and like that actually seemed a little bit scary. But as I was freelancing, I was noticing, I'm like, I would have done that a little bit differently, or I would have done a little bit more research here. And I think it really came together. I was on pilgrimage in 2019, and we had taken deacons from the diocese. It was a celebration of the 50th anniversary of the diaconate. And so we had taken a group to the Holy Land. And one of the locations that was not on our itinerary was the Church of St. Stephen.
Oh,
What?
Right, exactly. That was exactly my, like, how do you not have that on the itinerary?
because he's the patron of deacons. He was the first deacon.
Yes, right. And so to not go to his church, and I'm like, this is wrong. Like how are the company, how are they missing this? And so when I, before I left, there was a guide and a driver now in the Holy Land who I'm very dear to my heart, both of them. And I was with Father Mike Hall. He was the spiritual director for the trip. And we said, okay, like, we want to be able to come back. We want to be with you guys, with the driver and the guide, but we can't come back with this company, like, just because of, we were rewriting the whole itinerary. And because long story short, it was given to us. Like, we weren't at the beginning of it, but it was like the director that was supposed to go couldn't go, and so Father Mike and I took it on, and so that's how. So we weren't in the initial planning phases, but realizing at that point, I had an opportunity then to meet the owner of the ground company that was like, oh yeah, we knew that this was wrong right from the beginning, but they insisted on doing, A, B, and C. So I ended up getting connected with him, and he, at that time, said, you're going to start your own company. And I said, I have no desire to start my own company. I said, I'm just looking for another company that is going to help me lead Catholic tours for the people that are in my diocese. And he's like, all right, well, you might not be ready right now, but I'm telling you, like, the questions that you're asking, the different things. And so, and so then it, like, fast forward 2-3 years later, it was after COVID. I was noticing that a lot of companies were closing.
Oh, sure.
And and I thought, now's the opportunity. I'm going to do it, and so I did.
Oh, that's amazing. So for people who have never been on a pilgrimage, particularly, we have lots of local opportunities, but for anyone who hasn't been overseas, what is something you would tell them about the experience, like how they should prepare for it?
walk ahead of time. Get your legs ready. No, that's always
Comfortable shoes.
Comfortable shoes.
Walk
Those
on
are always big
cobblestones,
things.
so you're used to this.
Yeah, exactly. Get your ankles ready. I'm like, other than obviously the physical preparation, it depending on where you're going. I'm like, it is definitely like the spiritual preparation for it too. Again, it just kind of depends on the country that you're going to, but
Maybe research some of the
yeah,
places
like to be able
beforehand.
to do a little bit of research beforehand. I always think that one of the I remember on many pilgrimages that I've gone on in my earlier years when I didn't do research, I'd get back on the bus and somebody would say, "Oh, did you see this painting, or did you see the finger of Doubting Thomas?" And I'm like, "Where was that?" You know, like I was looking at the other paintings and the other uncorrupt bodies. Like I missed, some of the big things. And so, yeah, so definitely to do a little bit of research beforehand, but always the being spiritually ready, I think is a good thing, because you need not only patience with yourself, but you need patience with other people. It's and I think that
Right.
that's an important thing, because if you're anybody, you're like me and you like to be able to, you like things a certain way. And if you were leaving at 4:00, we have to leave at 4:00. Well, sometimes you have the people that like to leave at 4:10. And so you have to be able to grow patience with other people, and realizing that helpful is when you're able to pray your way through that. So
I think that's a really good point. It's kind of what you said earlier too, like it might be for you and might not, right? Like a group trip, because in 2005, my husband and I went on a group pilgrimage, and we love groups, we love to talk, but we didn't realize, yeah, like you said, the bus is leaving at 4:00. I'm not a morning person, so you know what I mean? So I was like, wait, what? You don't have the option of getting going behind, because, that's it. That's your transportation. Or, I thought, oh, well, we're going to walk around and we're going to see this together. Yes, but you're also going to see it with 30 other people who might want to talk to you. Like, I wanted maybe my time with him, and we weren't prepared for that. But on the other hand, like, we ended up meeting people separately, that we were having our own, like, Jesus moments that we weren't expecting. So that was one of the gems. But I do wish we had been more prepared for the group part to say, yeah, there is a difference between a trip and a pilgrimage.
very much so.
And I think that sometimes people don't realize that, including myself.
Yeah. And, I always find one of the things, and again, it goes to many different locations, but often when I would take people to the Holy Land, people expect to wait online when you're going to Disney, or you expect to wait online if you're, going to like some other secular site. You're not expecting to wait 2 hours in line to be able to go into the Vatican, right, into St. Peter's. And so sometimes it's like, we try to work the tours so that we don't have to have our people do that, right? I'm like, I always try to get mass early in the morning, and so that's just it. It's like, okay, are we leaving the hotel at 6 a.m. and we're going to be able to get into St. Peter's in 20 minutes, or are we going to leave the hotel at 10 a.m. and we're going to have to wait 2.5 hours? So, I'm like, there's the happy balance that way, and people very much understand when I do the Via Dolorosa in the Holy Land. We normally start that at 5 a.m.
Wow.
when the streets are completely empty,
Well, that's
because you need
smart.
to be able to enter in. But at the same time, I've also done it in the middle of the afternoon when all the shops are open. And then that's also, right, I'm like, because you can envision our Lord walking through the streets and having the heckling and all of that. So it's, again, it's kind of what the group wants. It's what the balance is. But trying to be able to give the pilgrims the opportunity to fully be able to enter in and not get into the craziness of the lines, and but
And there's no fast pass or cut the line for these things. There's just you
sometimes
get there
if
when
you
you
have
get there.
if you have a bishop, if you
I was going to say, hold on. Because I remember one time I was in Florence on my own. I wasn't on a tour. And the church was getting ready to close. So, there was a huge line outside the church. And they're like, sorry, nobody can come in and tour the church unless you're here for Mass. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to Mass.
There you
So
go.
I had a fast pass because I decided to go to Mass. So Mass can be your, and it was a beautiful Mass. And, so it was a bonus because after Mass, I saw the architect.
Yeah, and sometimes too, it's like some of the churches in Italy, and we'll experience this getting ready for the Jubilee, that you have, like, if you want to go into the church to pray, which normally brings you into some sort of an adoration chapel, But you can have full view of the whole church. I remember very clearly in Venice when we went to St. Mark's, the line was, again, like 2.5 hours before you could even get in. Or you could go into the chapel and pray, but you really couldn't really walk around fully to be able to see. But you could see enough of it, and, so you use those little side sneaky doors if you can.
I like
Bonus
that.
prayer,
Yeah.
and you get to see.
Exactly. It's a twofer.
So you mentioned the Jubilee. Are y'all taking a tour for the Jubilee year?
Yeah, I actually have about 12 or 13 groups that are going throughout the year. Yeah, most of which at this point are sold out.
Oh
But
my goodness.
Yeah, I have a handful that are still open. So, yeah.
And where
But
are you going? Where are the tours going?
So majority of them are going to Italy, or going to Rome, obviously, because that's the only place that you can walk through the holy doors. Whereas, so unlike the Year of Mercy, the Holy Father, at that time allowed multiple churches to have holy doors, but very particularly for this Jubilee, he's only has the 4 major basilicas, and so majority of the groups are going there. But I do have a bunch that are going to Ireland, Spain, France, a couple other places. Poland, I have a young adult group that's going to be doing Poland in the footsteps of JP2 over the summer. Very cool.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
Is that the first time you've done a young adult tour?
Yeah, and so this is through Love and Responsibility. It's a bigger group. This particular one, it's so funny how we have our Catholic connection. So if I can just share a brief story. So Father Zach Swantek from Princeton contacts me and says, hey, we have this Love and Responsibility group. Love to be able to have a pilgrimage through Poland to JP2. I'd like to be able to introduce you to a friend of mine who's out in California, a guy by the name of Raymond Ip. Well, Raymond and I went to World Youth Day together.
Oh, wow.
In Germany when he was living in New Jersey. And so we're like, oh my gosh, hi, how are you? Like, great to see you. Like, what have you been doing? And so here it is, like 10, 15 years later, we're getting reconnected now in a completely different capacity. So he runs Love and Responsibility group out in Los Angeles. And so that's where majority of the people are coming from. But Father Zach also has a young adult group here at Princeton through the Aquinas Institute. And
Oh, that's exciting.
yeah, but so it's funny. It's our Catholic circles, like that.
The 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was curious how many trips that you have made personally to these different sites, and how you are able to keep that experience fresh when you return, like for the 6th time or something.
Right. For me, I love being able to witness other people's experiences, because having gone, and again, everything for me goes back to the Holy Land, but I work with a certain group of guides. There's probably like 3 or 4 like that I rotate through. So I know each of their presentations and
Nice.
and how they present, and it's almost like there's certain locations that it's like, okay, here it comes, like they're getting they're getting ready to pull it all together, and so like to see the expressions or or just again like some of the sites that people go to, it's like how special some of the locations are for people, or just appreciating the grandeur of walking into St. Peter's Basilica for the first time. And so I get to re-experience it through their eyes, which for me is, just makes it so much worth,
You can see that in action, that
I
they're
love it.
having this experience that they're going to take back
Right.
with them.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And because I remember then what my first experience was with that. And so being able to share that with them. So I can't go on all of the trips
Sure.
because I'm still also trying to work for the diocese. I'm also trying to run a business, but I would love to be able to go on all of them. So this year, just a couple of months ago, actually, when we were doing the Eucharistic miracles, was the first time I had three groups out of the country at the same time, and I was only with one of them.
Wow.
And so I was in constant contact, with the other groups, and how's everything going? What's going on? And so it was kind of like letting it go for the first time. But yeah.
Were there any stories in particular from this last trip that you'd like to share? Anything spectacular? Or I know you course, had personal experiences there, being able to pray.
I think one of the main experiences that everybody at least seemed in that moment, they were just floored, was when we were able to actually see and venerate the Eucharistic miracle in Siena, because that we weren't anticipating.
That's right. That wasn't on the schedule, right?
Well, we were celebrating Mass in the church, and so we knew that the miracle was there. Very similar to Orvieto, like it's behind it's not really glass, but like they have like a shield, like that you really can't fully see. And I guess the Franciscan that was in charge of the church, when he realized, like that what we were there for and that it was specific to the Eucharistic miracles, he went and got the key and allowed us to actually walk up to and to really venerate and pray before. And so realizing like that he was going to open up the door, everybody was like, it's really happening. Like we're really going to be able to see, because again, it wasn't something that we were anticipating. Like we knew it was behind. And so in faith, you're believing that it's behind the veil. And so to actually then be able to see it. And so it was a special moment even for me too, being able to take pictures of everybody in front of it. So they didn't know that I was taking pictures, but as each husband and wife couple or each individual, to be able to take that picture of them, to have that special moment. And so that's like when I go, I try to kind of blend in because there are places that I've been to before, to try to be able to capture some of those moments for people because I don't want them to be taking pictures. I want them to be praying. I want them to be able to enter in. And so if I can be that paparazzi that's kind of working around them, to be able to have that and to be able to bring home that experience. So
I think especially in these days and time when we have to take a picture of everything, to actually forget to take a picture because you're in the presence of God, of a Eucharistic miracle, that says a lot in itself.
Really does.
So it's so good that, somebody else can capture it in case, because sometimes when you're in that moment, I don't know about you, have you ever been in a moment like that and it's almost like you kind of forget it afterward because you're so in it that maybe you weren't meant to remember it, or you weren't remember. Does that make sense? Like, did you ever have one of those?
I ended up, one of the times I went to World Youth Day, second time I had seen JP2, and I knew that his motorcade was going to come right in front of us, and he's in the Pope Mobile, and I didn't want to have that experience through the camera. And so I lifted the camera over my head because I wanted the visual of seared in my memory. And when I got the pictures back, I had somebody else's camera immediately in front of mine. So I thought to myself, if I was so focused on looking through the lens and not concentrating on him, I would have missed it on both sides, So I really try to encourage people to say, like, you can get better pictures online anyway. Right. Just have the experience and have the moment. And,
that's a good point, because there are thousands of, if you want a picture of the Vatican, professional picture or something, it's available to you. Maybe not with you standing in front of it, but like lately my family has been like, I don't want pictures taken. I'm trying to respect that. And that has forced me to be a little bit more immersed in whatever those moments I might have documented. So I'm hoping 20 years from now, they don't look back and go, I don't have very many pictures from when we were teenagers.
That's what it is.
We were just enjoying the time together, enjoying the memories,
I mean, not on that level at all. Let me just put that out there right now for all the listeners from what I'm about to say. I didn't take a lot of pictures at the New Kids on the Block concert a couple of months ago because I just wanted to be in the moment. So I understand what you're saying on a totally very low point.
Well, I was writing down something that Father Martin was saying, and I think this speaks to your witnessing people just being in the moment, and the fact that God appeals to us through our senses. That, yes, every time the miracle of the Eucharist takes place in Mass, that's a true miracle. That is Jesus right there. But he still gives us these little opportunities to see visually what that is represented. The Eucharist itself is a meal. It's something that we're meant to experience in body and spirit. And so I just love that acknowledgement of our human element being connected to the divine. It's just, that's the essence of who Jesus is.
We doing a lot of talking about like overseas, and I'm saying Holy Land, we're talking about Rome and everything. Like, there are so many places that you can take a pilgrimage, and even by concentrating as you're praying the rosary, right? I'm like, that really can be a walking pilgrimage. Like, you don't have to go someplace far in order to be able to enter in and to be able to have those moments. Like, sometimes even just doing Lectio, right? I'm like
Right.
reading scripture
Right.
and allowing yourself to read it a couple of times and finding that one word and what is it that the Lord is trying to say. Like, we don't have to go, because not everybody has the financial means, not everybody has the
Sure.
physical means. But to be able to say like that, everybody's able to take a pilgrimage, even just by praying the rosary, even by praying, just the Our Father, and being able to really enter in, putting ourselves in that place, putting ourselves in that moment, and just allowing the Lord to speak, for sure.
That's such a great point. And if you
is.
do want to travel, I mean, we even have some in this state. There's
Oh,
one
yeah.
in the Diocese of Trenton, right? A shrine?
Oh yeah, right. At the St. Mary, Mother of God,
Yes.
in Middletown, right? And like we have the adoration, the Eucharistic Adoration Shrine. We have a ton that are in New
St.
Jersey.
Dominic's in Brick.
St. Dominic's and Brick,
with
right?
The St. Carlos.
The
relic is there.
Yeah, and then even outside of the diocese, the Our Lady of Fatima Shrine, which is at Washington, New Jersey, a little bit further up and
Oh,
close
we
to
have one.
Philadelphia. Those that are close to Philadelphia,
There's some
like
in
Miraculous
Philadelphia.
Medal,
St. Padre Pio. Yeah.
St. Rita.
And we kind of forget that that's unique maybe to this very populated, densely populated area of the country where you go, I mean, certainly if you go to places out west like California with the missionaries, there were shrines there and holy sites. But, there are places out there where it can be very dry, aside from your local church. And even those are far flung. So, we're blessed with riches in this area.
Or I was just thinking, like, when I go for my walks, instead of listening to New Kids on the Block, I could probably do some rosaries
There you go.
and, take myself on a little pilgrimage on my own.
Yeah.
Because I like to walk in, like, nature. And so I think that's, like, a perfect idea.
Yeah, sometimes you need the music. Maybe if you find like a rosary that's like a little bit upbeat, right? Like we can do.
There are
I think
a
they
couple
have.
of
I was going to
apps
say
that
even-
have music in the background with
Yeah.
the rosary, so you can kind of
Are there?
enter into. Yeah. I can't plug them because I don't know for sure, but I've seen a couple that just I think they're meant for bedtime when you're like kind of winding down at the edge of the end of the day. So I don't know if that's appropriate for a nature walk, but
Yeah. Well, anybody who knows them and wants to come on the show, if you bring swag, we might put you on. We'll see.
I love it.
I don't know.
Oh, it's been so great to visit with you, Carolyn, and hear about your experiences.
Thanks.
Is there
Thanks for
anything
taking
else?
interest. And
Yeah.
Thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
it's great. And I love travel, but I love that kind of travel the best when you're going with an intent to be closer to our Lord. I mean, there's nothing more beautiful than that, especially since he's everywhere. So I love that. So tell people again, if they're interested in taking a tour, your company and how they can find you.
Yeah. So the company is Journey of Faith. And so my website is journeyoffaithtours.com. And if there are specific groups that you're looking to connect with, you can just contact me directly and get you connected. There's a couple of places on the website that if you're looking to join a group, you can just give your information and I'll get you connected, see where you want to go.
And good point. You don't have to have a friend go with you or a partner, or you can go on your own and meet new friends.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of people that do that. Especially if you're traveling like with your parish community, it's especially if you're by yourself, it is definitely a safer way to be able to travel for sure.
That is a great point because those of us who are not experienced with international travel, it's like, where do I begin? How do I know that I'm, using a reputable company or a place to stay? How do I, having other people around, I think, and then sharing that experience, that transformation with there's Catholics, we need community. Our faith is about community and sharing that.
Well, just remember, everybody, you can take a tour with Carolyn on Journey of Faith. They won't pack for you, but they'll do everything else. So thank you to Carolyn Norbut for joining us on Better Together. Thank you, Father Martin O'Reilly. And Em, always good to see you.
You too, Jen. We'll see you next time.